All right, welcome to another edition of the Church Dropout Podcast. My name is Alan. I'm the host. Church Dropout is a podcast. We talk about issues, topics, and teachings related to faith, life, and culture in ways that are sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always insightful. If you have not already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below. Keep the conversation moving forward. Shout out to Joe Bahoda over at Walking in the Word. Friend of mine. He actually sent me a text message, I believe yesterday or Friday, one of the two, losing track of days here. I believe it was Friday, with this issue or the latest controversy, I guess I should say, of Joel Webbon. He actually did a live. Go check out his live where he calls it out pretty straightforward, and gives some direction on what we ought to do as it relates to this. Go check it out at his channel again, Joe Bahoda. If I have time, I'll link it in the description. But I want to talk about something related to his last controversy. But first, I want you to hear what he actually said. He continues to spew racism, and I have a few things to say about that. Now, listen, it's not necessarily, this video is not about Joel Webbon. It's really about Christianity as a whole and evangelicalism. And So anyway, I want to just listen to this real fast and get into what I would like to mention. So here we go. Oh, and before I start, Right Wing Watch is where I got the video for this. Joe sent me a video that another content creator had actually did a video on calling this stuff out. But I found the video on Right Wing Watch. So shout out to them using their content.
Hey, cut it out. You need to grow up. Stop throwing a fit. You're throwing a tantrum. Stop being a little boy. You're whining and crying about something that's ultimately your fault.
Yeah.
Stop blaming it on other people. It's your fault. Because here's the deal. It's like, well, slavery. The richest black people on God's green earth are African Americans. If slavery never happened, then you would be in a grass hut.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we need reparations. Your reparations are that you get to live in America. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You get to have the Christian religion.
That's
live
right.
better than your ancestors.
The greatest moment in history for any brown or black country is the moment that the white man's ships arrive on your shore. Because he brings the gospel of Jesus Christ. He catechizes you and your children. He brings exports. He brings hospitals, medicine, life expansion increases, GDP and resources increase, medicine increases, and most importantly, you get taught the gospel of Jesus Christ so that you can live longer on earth and then go to heaven instead of hell. That's historically what has happened. That doesn't mean white people haven't sinned. That doesn't mean that they did it all right, that there weren't abusive slave masters, that there weren't that's not to absolve white people of sin. But I'm saying on the big picture, to say, well, black people are victims, black people are oppressed, and white people owe us something, and it's all your fault. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And here's the deal. I think getting to the question from Starch Manning is a lot of the pushback that eventually conservatives finally mustered enough courage to say is, well, hey, look, can we just agree to a truce and let's just, we just won't talk about race at all.
Right. There was mistakes on both sides.
There were mistakes on both sides. Mistakes on both sides. No. That's not actually the solution. White people are sinners who need Jesus. Within white European history, there has been sin that has required the blood of Jesus. But on the whole, for 1,000 years, European people have been worshiping Jesus as sinners, but sinners saved by grace. And on the whole, non-European people, much of the rest of the world, has been worshiping demons. Mm-hmm. European people have been building cathedrals. Non-European people have been building grass huts. And for those who are of non-European descent, but live in the Western world, you are exceedingly blessed. And the response shouldn't be, let's push back against wokeness and just say, nobody talk about race. No, the response should be, stop whining. Stop throwing a fit. Get it together. God has blessed you, and he blessed you in large part through white people. So stop doing it. And also, as for you and your house, do your part to change the FBI crime statistics and stop killing people.
All right. So there you have it. The latest Joel Webbon mess. I don't care to respond to what he has said and his skewed view of history and his misguided understanding of how white folks have worshiped Jesus and, and everyone else has just lived in huts and worshiped demons. There's so much there in that. And I'm sure there are some videos out there of some individuals who are critiquing, some of these points and have critiqued some of these points that he has brought out. And but that is not what I wish to do today, because I to be honest with you, I feel like this is pure ignorance and it's racist and it is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, Joel Webbon has been behaving this way for a long time. And so what I do want to talk about, though, is something that came to mind when Joe texted me this, and I was talking to Lisa, and why won't evangelicals, Christians, American Christians, these solid theologians, why won't these individuals call out Joel Webbon? Why won't they call out Joel Webbon for what he is? Why won't they call him out for what he is? Why won't they speak against Joel Webbon and label him and mark and avoid and all the stuff that they do to others? Why not Joel Webbon? Why is it that Christians rather interview him than to call him out? His position is clear. Like, there's no gray in his position. It's not like we're failing to understand what exactly he's saying. Why are Christians choosing to interview Joel Webbon versus call him out for his hatred? It's so interesting to me, that we have Christians who will produce documentaries and have really honestly built their channels on going after, false teachers. And here we have a false teacher who no one has really, methodically pushed back against concerning his rhetoric. And it's so interesting to me. There is selective politicking that happens in the Christian space, where certain individuals get passes. And I want to talk about some of the reasons why I think this happens, why evangelicals don't speak out when it comes to stuff like this. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about all, and I'm not saying that, and I don't even know if these individuals consider themselves to be evangelicals. But, like I said, my boy Joe, spoke out. A gentleman that he sent the video to me, he spoke out, and and I'm sure there's a whole plethora of others who have spoke out against Joel Webbon. But from a popular level, from the ones who claim to have influence in the space, you don't hear anything. They avoid it. Say things like, "Hey, we're not following him in particular. We didn't hear it," but they will dig and dig and dig for a Benny Hinn, for a Benny Hinn clip. None of these individuals will call Joel Webbon out. And, and again, I mean, Joel Webbon, Doug Wilson, these individuals have been running rampant for years and saying these things for years. And like I said, these well-spoken theologians have all chose to have conversations instead of marking and avoiding and saying like, this guy is off his rockers, and we need to be careful, and we need to avoid his ministry at all costs. It just doesn't happen, and it's interesting to me. And I have some reasons why I think this doesn't happen, and I would love to hear yours as well. But here are some of my reasons. One, I think, and let me say this too. Let me just say this real quick. In silence, we're only left to speculate, right? When individuals, when Christians, popular culture, influencers, theologians, when they don't say anything about it, we can only speculate as to why no one is calling him out. And again, all of this stuff, I had a conversation with them on the phone and miss me with all of that. So anyway, so here's a few reasons. I'm not going to go through a whole lot, but here's a few reasons why I think people don't call out Joel Webbon, why nobody will speak on this. One, I think a lot of people secretly believe it, and maybe even openly believe it, but I think a lot of people secretly believe it. I think Joel Webbon says a lot of things that people may be thinking. They just don't have the courage to say it, and so they don't stand against it because they believe it. I think, Joel Webbon is, in some senses, a voice for many white Christians, for many white Christians on issues of race. And people don't say anything because they believe it. They agree with it. They just, again, don't have the courage to say it themselves, So that's one reason. Another reason is, again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier about selective politicking. I think if these individuals denounce Joel Webbon for his racist rhetoric, then they would have to renounce and deny a large part of Christian tradition. Many of the theologians that are being read in seminary and in Bible college, and that your pastor is, referencing in his sermons, and where he's getting a lot of his information, are from individuals who were slave owners and who were openly against, black folks or any other folks, or white supremacists. And so if you call out Joel Webbon, then you need to call out all of these, theologians, or these people that we hold in high esteem in Christian tradition. Jonathan Edwards, owning slaves and different things of that sort. And, Luther hating Jews, and, Calvin being a murderer. And yeah, you'd have to call all of this stuff out. Right? You'd have to denounce some of the people that these people hold in high regard. So I don't think some people call out Joel Webbon because, to be honest, they'd have to call out certain parts of the Christian tradition while doing it. And it's easier just to let it go, and to selective politic, and to not address those things, and go for the low hanging fruit, right? Go for the individuals who are clearly, right, going against scripture with false teaching, right? These word faith individuals, but not Joel Webbon. Not the racist remarks. We need to have a conversation. We need to interview him and understand better what he believes. He's clear on what he believes. And it's clear that evangelicals don't want to call him out. And part of the reason I think is because they would end up calling out a large part of their Christian traditions. And here's the last thing I'm going to say on this, because I don't want this video to be long. We worship doctrine. I've heard people say, but Joel Webbon holds to the essentials. He understands the gospel. Listen, good doctrine, bad application is bad doctrine. That is not good theology. And whether an individual has an intellectual understanding of the gospel, and I don't care that they stand in a pulpit, every week, if they are hating their neighbor and they are clearly promoting partiality at the very least, racialization at the very least, right? Racial superiority. They're going against the gospel, and they are not sound theologically. And for some reason, we've been led to believe that because a person expresses correct doctrine and believes in the quote unquote essentials, that saves them. There will be plenty of people who understand the doctrine, and some who've even preached it, who won't meet Jesus upon their death. But yet, for some reason, we think our intellectual capacity to understand doctrine makes us sound. The Bible's clear. I mean, watch your life and your doctrine, right? They are one and the same, right? If a person fails to love their neighbor, then they don't have good theology, regardless of what you believe. And I think a lot of people let Joel Webbon go because they say he's sound in the gospel, without realizing that the application of the gospel that he says he's preaching is far from his heart. And unfortunately, because we worship doctrine, and because doctrine is supreme in Western Christianity, how a person lives plays very little part in what we believe to be true. And so those are some reasons why I think, people overlook, this guy, and don't call him out for his hate speech, and, don't mark and avoid him, And so I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Like I said, shout out to Joe. Go check out his video. He actually called for individuals to, call for his resignation. But he's been empowered to behave this way. He's been empowered to behave this way. If you look at the history of his speech, it progressively gets worse, because he's more emboldened by nobody else, by the lack of voices that are calling him out. And he's very confident in his ability to be able to argue these things without realizing that winning the argument is not the goal. Winning the heart is. And but anyway, I encourage you to go check out his channel, not Joel Webbon's, of course, but Joe Bahoda's channel. Shout out to him for sending this to me. But I'd love to hear what you guys think of this. As always, drop a comment below. Keep the conversation moving forward. Thank you so much for tuning into the Church Dropout. I'll talk to you soon. God bless.